How you doing, YouTube family? Today is Tuesday, November the 4th, 2025. It's your man, Big D, and I am back with another one. Want to thank all you folk out there in YouTube land for continuing to rock out with my son and I. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Well, family, I'm back with another video. And in this video, we got my man, Billy Carson. And he was doing a seminar on a topic that I think we should have a discussion about. So as we just fall through the rabbit hole of life, we end up at the crossroads of it all comes down to what you believe, how you were raised. And whether it be you was raised believing what was written in the King James version of the Bible, whether you was raised a Seventh-day Adventist, you was raised in the Catholic religion, Muslim, doesn't matter. What it comes down to is what you believe, and more times than not, what you believe is what your parents believe. And what your parents believe is what their parents believe, and so on and so forth. So, what if all of that was religion as a whole was something that was fed to human beings as a means to keep them under control and docile? So, without further ado, let's go ahead and check out my man, Billy Carson, and I will add my commentary here and there along the way.
All right, let's get started. So we're talking about cargo cults initially. What is a cargo cult? In my opinion, this entire civilization on this planet right now, currently, is a cargo cult. We're talking about a cult of people that literally were engaged by a more advanced people. So if you look at this image up here, this is in the South Pacific. These people now for many, many, many decades are still remembering the United States showing up to their islands, all right? These islands in the French Polynesia where we decided we wanted to go remove some people off of their island and then blow it up with a nuclear bomb so we can see what's gonna happen, okay? So we went to where? We went to, of course, where the indigenous people lived and took them out of their land. But when we showed up on some of these islands, these airplanes came out of the sky. They'd never seen airplanes before. They had never seen weapons like guns, which you see them here. They never seen, you see these sticks, they've got bayonets, false bayonets, but actual bayonets at the end. They saw USA on the uniforms, and look at them. They've got USA on painted on their chest. They've got fake bayonets and weapons, all based off of when they saw the sky gods come down in these airplanes and bring them supplies and cans of Spam, which is a true story, cans of Spam. They became gods. Why? Because when a higher level civilization technologically engages a civilization that's got lower technology, the lower technology civilization will deify them. It's automatic, it's programmed into our DNA. You see here, look how their memories are so good. They even got the flag. This is another reason why, look at this airplane in the lower left corner that they put together from reeds and sticks to mimic what they saw come out of the sky. And they pray to this stuff. This is like worship, a complete cult, waiting for the sky gods to return with more Spam and more supplies. It's crazy. But when you look at what's happened on Earth, all of a sudden, it makes a lot of sense. When you see somebody recreate a flag like this in the middle of nowhere, you got to realize that when you see cave paintings of aliens, you got to take it serious. Because clearly they know what an airplane looks like. Clearly they know what a gun with a bayonet looks like. Clearly they know what a flag looks like. So when you see these people in these cave drawings or these petroglyphs are etching out and sketching out images that look alien, I believe them. Because I believe they're drawing what they saw. They're creating what they saw or what engaged them. Look at this, a satellite dish. Think about that. This is just from a tiny bit of influence from a civilization on the same planet. Imagine beings coming here from another planet that were a million years ahead of us technologically. What kind of influence would they have on us? Well, just look around. We went from a horse, buggy, and carriage 100 years ago to putting remote control cars on other planets. Think about that rate of speed of growth. Even with all the suppression and oppression of advanced technologies that we should be privy to, we're still advancing at an astronomical rate because we were engaged by beings from another planet. All right? Look at this. Anthropologists have invented or cultivated a number of important keywords, including culture, ethnicity, worldview, socialization, ethnography, and rite of passage. Among these terms is cargo cult, which, although more particular in scope, has enjoyed surprising popularity both inside the discipline and beyond. Peter Worsley, I'm staying at the Worsley Country Club right now. That's interesting. I guess it must be a relative of this guy. He probably bought the land way back then. Who compiled an early overview of cargo cults in The Trumpet Shall Sound, 1957, offered what they had already become, which is the standard definition. So we talked about what the cargo cults are. When a more advanced civilization engages a less advanced civilization, the less advanced civilization is going to deify that more advanced civilization. Here's a short video clip. Let's take a look at this. So imagine sitting around for countless hours a day, looking up at the sky, waiting for another plane to show up, to land on your artificial runway. I'm trying to impact into your mind how all the world religions came to be. How did it happen? Why did it happen? And the origins come out of the Emerald Tablets of the spirituality, which then later on, when people realized the power that was in these words, you can turn it into religion. You see, spirituality and religion are two separate things. People who think that they may go to a religious house to worship believe that it's spiritual. No, religion is here, spirituality is here. Two totally separate things are not one and the same. Spirituality, there are no rules. You have a direct connection with the divine. In a religious system, you have to go through clergy and so forth, a hierarchical system to get to the divine. It's two totally separate ways of looking at things, all right? But look at this. The history of the Emerald Tablets translated in the following pages is strange and beyond the belief of modern scientists. Their antiquity is stupendous, dating back some 36,000 years BC. So we're talking about 38,000-year-old texts. The writer is Thoth, an Atlantean priest king who founded a colony in the ancient Egypt after the sinking of the mother country. He was the builder of the Great Pyramid of Giza, erroneously attributed to Cheops. In it, he incorporated his knowledge of the ancient wisdom and also securely secreted records and instruments of ancient Atlantis. You see, the people that came here in ancient times and engaged mankind, they were the Anunnaki, but that is a term that means from heaven came to earth. The civilization they built was the Atlantean civilization. You see, Atlantean is a civilization name. The people were the Anunnaki. This is recorded in ancient texts. For some 16,000 years, he ruled the ancient race of Egypt. So we're talking about Thoth, the Atlantean priest king. Here he has on on that image here. You guys are going backwards and forward, okay. Well, anyway, in the image you saw in my book, he had on the head of a beak, a helmet of a beak, but that really isn't his real face. He doesn't really have a bird face. He has a human face or a humanoid type of a face. But what's interesting is this guy ruled for 16,000 years, according to the ancient Egyptians, one person. And that's not the only time in history we've heard of these lifetimes of ruling. We know that in the Sumerian kings list, some kings ruled over earth for 28,800 years, 14,000 years, 8,000 years. One person ruling for thousands and thousands of years. That's just the time they ruled. What about the time they lived? Think about that for a minute. We're talking about a record of people that were here on this planet that had enormous and immense lifespans and had advanced technology that engaged mankind and altered us forever. Those with, for 16,000 years, he ruled over the land of Egypt. From approximately 52,000 BC to 36,000 BC, at that time, the ancient barbarous race among which he and his followers had settled had been raised to a high degree of civilization. So he raised up the land of Kemet before it was called Egypt. Egypt was a fairly new name. That's a Greek name. Before it was Egypt, it was called Kemet. He raised them up to a high level of civilization. He ushered in a golden age in the land of Kemet after the Great Flood, according to the Emerald Tablets. Thoth was an immortal. That is, he had conquered death, passing only when he willed, and even then, not through death. His vast wisdom made him ruler over the various Atlantean colonies, including the ones in South and Central America. More evidence here again in text that Atlantis was not just a ring city sitting in the Atlantic Ocean. Atlantis was a global civilization. More than that, it was an interplanetary civilization. I'm going to show you some evidence of that tonight. Okay? So, the ring city itself was one capital of dozens of capitals that existed on this planet. Because if you read the Emerald Tablets, Thoth says, after we raised Kemet to a high level, he told his crew that he brought there with him in a ship that descended from the sky to go around the planet and duplicate what we did here. He said, duplicate what we did in the land of Chem. And that's why no matter where you go on earth, you will find similar construction techniques with megalithic stone, pyramids, and so forth, right? Temples all over the place. Why? Because there was one master blueprint, and they copied it and took it all around the world. It says here, when the time came for him to leave Egypt, he created and erected the Great Pyramid over the entrance to the great halls of Amenti, placing in it his records and appointed guards for his secrets from among the highest of his people. In later times, the descendants of these people, the guards, they became the pyramid priests, by which Thoth was deified as the God of wisdom. You see, he was deified. Now, what's interesting is when Thoth, in the beginning of the Emerald Tablets, he comes across human beings. He then shows them what he's capable of. They grovel at his feet. He says, stop, stand up. Basically saying, I'm not a god. Don't worship me. He said, I'm a son of Atlantis, and I'm here to raise you back up to a high level of civilization. Which is why I have so much respect for this ancient person, because he actually did not want to masquerade as a god like some of his relatives did. Enki and Lil and so forth. Some of these people took on, oh yeah, I'm God, worship me, Amun-Ra. But he said, no, I'm a son of Atlantis. I'm here to help you. You see, so people always ask, are there good aliens and bad aliens? Yes, some are good, some are bad, just like there's good humans and bad humans. Good and evil permeate the entire universe. And one thing I found through going through biblical studies, I'm going to go here to the next slide, is there are records of UFOs in the Bible, okay? Now, of course, I can't list them all here and talk about them all here all at once, but there are descriptions of UFOs described in the Bible. And so, keep it in mind, I say, Bible translators as far back as the 1600s described what they thought were flying vehicles. They didn't use the words as we use today because those words didn't actually exist. But I'm describing here what is in the Bible. There are 70 verses which describe clouds as vehicles, 15 verses which describe pillars, 10 describing dwellings, 160 verses on lights and fire as vehicles. There are 17 verses describing spinning wheels, 22 verses describing dark and shining objects. There are 37 verses of various objects in the Bible described as UFOs, and they are flying furnaces, burning bushes, eagles' wings, smokes, stars, and other objects that the ancient authors used to describe the fleet of the vehicles of the Elohim. The fleet of the vehicle of the Elohim. The Elohim is a plural term. In the Bible, it means gods, plural with an S. You see, in the Bible, where you see the word God, singular, there's a little bit of a mistake that happened by accident on purpose. They forgot the S. If you go back and translate the words back into Aramaic and even further back, you discover that the word is actually gods. And all these ancient scriptures and papyruses that they took from all these caves as they began to culminate this into a canonized book, I'm talking about the Council of Nicaea who did this, they began to erase the S when they copied and translated over the book because they wanted to usher in monotheism, a one God religion, a one God mindset. But these records had clearly stated that there were multiple gods, and some of that kind of escaped into the biblical text where it says, I am a jealous God. There'll be no other gods but me. Well, that's actually words from Amun-Ra, a.k.a. Marduk in the Bible in the Hebrew Torah. So those were his words. It's not the creator of the universe speaking. A lot of times we think it's the creator of the universe speaking in this book. It's not. It's these Anunnaki Atlantean people that are actually speaking. Virtually all religions believe in aliens, okay? Virtually all religions believe in aliens. What do I mean by that? If you look deep into the origins of religion, you'll find that they're all based on aliens, right? So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at some of the evidence. Christianity, 2.1 billion people worship Jesus, right? And he said unto them, you are from beneath, I am from above. You are of this world, I am not of this world, not from earth. If you look at the definition of alien, it means not from earth or from another country. Islam, 1.3 billion believe that the Prophet Muhammad was meditating in a cave of Hira by himself when the angel Jibreel, who said he was not from earth in the text, descended and came down to him and told him to recite the Iqra, which is the word of God. Again, not from earth, alien. Hinduism, 851 Hindus hold that the cosmos is populated by a numerous amount of deities and spiritual beings, gods and goddesses or devas, who actually influence the world, who interact with humans. Again, not from earth, alien. Buddhism, 375 million. Certain branches of the larger Buddhist tradition, including the Mahayana, include a variety of gods and goddesses not from earth. And of course, Mormons, 13.5 million people worship that. The angel Moroni, who was said he was not from earth in the text, is in Mormonism, excuse me, an angel that visited Joseph Smith on numerous occasions, beginning on September 21st, 1823. According to Smith, the angel was the guardian of the golden plates, which the Latter-day Saints believe were the source material for the Book of Mormon, buried in a hill near Smith's home. This angel named Moroni came out of the sky, met up with them, and showed them where to get these tablets from under the ground, and that's how they created the entire religion. But if you see the trend here, we're talking about being engaged by beings that are not from earth. There's no text that I've read, over the years now, I've read over 1,000 scriptures, papyruses, cylinder scrolls, books, biblical texts, all the Quran, everything I've read. Not one book is specifically talking about the creator of the universe. Now, there's several books that come pretty close, but they're not religious books or spiritual books. They are science books, quantum physics. Quantum physics is the closest thing I found to proving the existence of a God, which I believe does exist. I'm not an atheist. So I believe that we're living in a creation because the quantum physics and quantum mechanics formulas actually prove that we're living in a created universe. But there is no other text that exists outside of science that's really talking about the true, actual creator. We're talking about text authored by human beings with human hands. And actually, the problem with that is, if I go to the first person in this row and whisper in her ear and tell her to carry that story and whisper in the next ear, the next ear, the next ear, until it comes all the way back around to this gentleman here, by the time it gets to him and I go say, what did they say? What did I say? The story is going to be different. That's the problem. The story is not going to be the same. Why do I do the Emerald Tablets? Because it's one of the only texts that exists where the author was the actual person himself. Thoth authored them and wrote it himself. He didn't use a scribe. One thing you notice in all these other texts, there were scribes. There were people writing down stuff for other people, sometimes even hundreds, sometimes thousands of years after the events occurred. Like the Bible was written from 100 AD to 900 AD. Well, Jesus lived 2,000 years prior, so nobody was walking next to him going, say that one more time, Jesus? I'm just saying. And Jesus was a real person. He existed. His name wasn't Jesus. His name was Yeshua. That's his real name, Yeshua. When we go to Egypt, we take people to the place where he lived in Egypt, in Africa. Yes, Egypt is in Africa, in case you didn't know. Some people think it's in Arabia. No, it's in Africa. Jesus lived in Egypt, and the house and the bed he slept in is still there till this very day. It's a shrine. Why was he there? At the age of 12, he disappears out of the Bible. Where does he go? Where does Jesus go? He disappears from the age of 12 to 32. He ends up in Egypt, which is located in Africa, and he ends up in there studying the Egyptian mysteries of who? Thoth the Atlantean. Where do I find this information? It's in the Gospel of the Holy 12. By accident, on purpose, left out of the biblical text. Just didn't make it in. We just couldn't put this in, guys. This kind of important information, we just couldn't put it in. He then goes to Tibet to learn Reiki healing, Qigong, energy moving through the body, chakras and all that good stuff, which was confirmed by the Dalai Lama. And then he moved down into India, where he learned the mystic arts, teaching reincarnation all the way back to Egypt. And then from there, the Bible picks up, I call my son, God is speaking, I call my son out of Egypt. And he shows up in Jerusalem riding on the back of a donkey at the age of 32. That's where the Bible picks back up the missing pieces, right? And so, yes, he was a real person, a real teacher. But I have this funny meme. Virtually all religions worship and believe in aliens, and it's a fact. Whether you want to admit it or not, it's an absolute fact. We're worshiping something that's not of this world, whether it's multidimensional, whether it is dimensional, it doesn't matter. This is a fact that we can't escape. Where do a lot of this information come from? The Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation is one of the greatest texts that exist that we have access to. This text is located in the British Museum, and I've seen these tablets in person. You guys just happen to be in Britain, so you go check them out, okay? And they tell an incredible story of not only of the creation of our solar system, they tell an incredible story of the creation of Earth itself as an actual planet, which matches up with astrophysical data. It matches. How would they know how Earth formed that many millions of years ago? Where did that knowledge come from? How did they know about the separation of waters from waters, how the asteroid belt was formed, and everything else that exists in our solar system? It's in these ancient tablets. It then goes into the point where there's actual people that are advanced beings that find a way to get to Earth to create a breakaway civilization. Can you imagine writing in cuneiform? Let me go to that page. Can you imagine writing in cuneiform tablets, which takes a lot of time to do, as you can see, using a tiny wooden stylus and etching it into wet clay, and then letting it bake or dry, and just coming up with a sci-fi story like that? You know, I just want to write a story about aliens coming and, building a city here on Earth. Somebody just cracks out a wet piece of clay and starts digging into it. I don't think that happened. What I think happened was these people were writing down exactly what they were told and what they saw. This is probably as close as you're going to get to any actual truth that exists on this planet, which is why I dig into these ancient tablets like there's nobody's business. And guess what? Every single person in here can read these tablets now. You don't need to be an expert in translation, because these tablets were translated long before Zecharia Sitchin was even born. Zecharia Sitchin didn't translate any of these tablets, as the conspiracy goes. He was a great researcher, and in his books, he quoted these tablets and many others. He never said he translated anything. These were translated in the 1800s, long before he even was born. So what does that mean? This text is ancient. Not only that, you can go to the UCLA CDLI online cuneiform digital library, and you can get all the stone tablets off the virtual shelf and drop them into the translator and read it all for yourself. You don't even need me anymore. And that's online. UCLA CDLI Cuneiform Digital Library Initiative. Say that fast 10 times and see if you can hang, okay? So let's move into the pyramids a little bit before we get into these images. The Great Pyramid is encoded with super advanced knowledge, pi, phi, and so many other incredible mathematical formulas, advanced knowledge. So when you look into these pyramids, it's a time capsule. It's a time capsule that's describing and telling us, for the age we're living in now, who was here in ancient times and how advanced they were. Because at the time that this information was encoded into the pyramid, which I'm going to go over real quick, I did a little bit of it last year, nobody at the time could even conceive or understand anything that was being encoded. They couldn't even understand basic mathematics. Most people were actually illiterate back then. Most people were illiterate. And if you were just a worker person, a person that had to go, work in the fields or work for your master, which is what happened back then as well. I mean, slavery is ancient. Slavery is not nothing new. Well, you wouldn't even walk around with clothes on in ancient Egypt because they wanted to make sure you weren't stealing anything from the pharaoh. So people didn't have any idea of this advanced mathematical knowledge. They were just trying to survive day by day, literally. Who built the Great Pyramid? Thoth built the Great Pyramid. Thoth, the Atlantean priest king. He says, build it out of the Great Pyramid, patterned after Earth's force, burning eternally so that it too might remain through the ages. And it has remained through these ages. It hasn't gone down yet. It's solid. In it, I builded my knowledge of magic science, which means advanced technology, so that it might be here when I return from Amenti. Amenti is the halls where he goes to send his bodies to rejuvenate, while he transfers his consciousness, according to him, into another body to walk amongst men unlike a man. Interesting stuff to write in 38,000-year-old text. His soul roaming will be free to incarnate and dwell amongst men in one form or another. This guy claims to have had advanced technology, which I believe the Serapeum in Saqqara, Egypt, is his father's halls of Amenti. Has anybody here been to the Serapeum? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The Serapeum, an amazing sight to see. Underground, underneath the sands of Giza, there is a huge chamber that goes on for about a half a mile, and it's carved perfectly out of the stone, and it has these alcoves, these halls going all the way down, and each hall has a 60, 70-ton sarcophagus, but it's not really a sarcophagus. It's a stone box that has never had a body in it. Each one is perfectly clean and pristine, and you can climb inside of them if you give the priest a couple dollars, he'll let you climb inside of one. But just to give you an idea how big they are, I'm 6'4". When I stand inside of them, my head is beneath the top of the box. The box is taller than me from the inside. So when I get inside, the box is up here. I've got to climb all the way back out again. The lids weigh 30, 40 tons each. But if you check the ancient texts, in some way they were technological. They could not have been moved into those alcoves. They had to be manifested there or teleported there because there's no way to fit anything that large and navigate it through those thin halls to get them into those spots. It's an incredible sight to see. If you ever have a chance to go to Egypt, we're going again in a few more weeks. Mohammed Ibrahim is here actually today as well. He's speaking this weekend. He's one of our main guides, and I'll be speaking there as well. We take 70 people every single year down to Egypt to see these amazing sights. So here I am inside the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid and standing out in front. This is a really old picture. But that box right there that I'm standing in front of, that box is not a sarcophagus, as they would want to teach you and tell you. That box that I'm standing there with my hand on, my right hand is on that box is the same exact dimensions as the Ark of the Covenant. And that's what used to sit inside of that box. The story of Moses is not exactly what the biblical text has told you. When you really dig into the tablets, you can kind of piece together a much bigger and broader story. It appears from my personal hypothesis, I will say, that Pharaoh Akhenaten most likely was closer to the actual Moses. He was ushering in monotheism, a one-God religion. He was worshiping Aten, the sun disk, also known as Amun-Ra, who told him to go around and deface every statue in the kingdom because I'm the only God and I'm a jealous God. Sound familiar? That's in the Bible. They copied it right into the Bible. But anyway, the pyramid over time had broken slightly in terms of the amount of power it was generating. It's a power generator. They added this granite stone box later, and they put the Ark of the Covenant in it to make a finishing piece to continue to generate electricity. You can see the corner that's broken, that huge chunk. If you can see the far side of the room, there's a gigantic hole or indention in the granite where that chunk of granite flew off and smashed into the wall because an enormous amount of power came through this box at one point, proving again energy inside this chamber. The energy would travel to the apex and go around. The obelisk would capture that wireless energy and transmit it to jets, which would then be transmitted through electrical cables so they can have light, gold electroplating, and everything else. It's ancient technology that we have here. This is ancient stuff. We had to plug this stuff in. My computer's got to be plugged in or it's going to die. Back then, they used wireless electricity. Here I am in the king's chamber again. So you can see that the speed of light in a vacuum is, right there, 299,792,458 meters per second. And the geographic coordinates for the Grand Gallery of the Great Pyramid is 299,792,458. What is that? How is that possible that this can be encoded? Why would the speed of light be encoded into the Great Pyramid? Now, people say, well, meters per second, we just discovered meters. No, actually not. We actually didn't just discover meters. Okay, let me show you why. If you go and look, you'll find that all of these school books are actually wrong and need to be corrected because we've actually known for a very long time about these stone tablets discovered with Proto-Sumerian cuneiform. Now, Sumerian is where? Mesopotamia, which is where now? Iraq. Guess where these Proto-Sumerian cuneiform tablets were discovered in the world? They were discovered in Mexico by the Pyramid of the Sun. What in the world are Sumerian tablets doing in Mexico? And these aren't the only ones. There were some Indian chief that was dug up from his burial chamber in America and where we live over there, across the pond, right? Where he had Sumerian tablets in his pocket. Now, what's interesting about these tablets are, that's the ancient metric system. So the metric system is ancient. It's not new. Stop. What they taught you in school, you got to forget about it. Wipe your brain clean and start fresh. This is the original discovery of the metric system here, which came out of Mexico, which originated where? From Sumerian cuneiform tablets. This is why I study the tablets, because they're as close as you can possibly get to the accurate truth. You know how much Wikipedia doesn't like to post this kind of information? This has its own Wikipedia page, and they actually told the truth about this, which is kind of crazy. You know, Wikipedia, they're kind of false, fake news a lot of times. You can't pass a college exam on Wikipedia. You can't. You do that, you're in trouble. So let's look at a couple of these measurements here, all right? One of the most amazing anomalies is right here on Earth, embedded constants that are in the Great Pyramid. You can calculate the tropical year or calendar year. The length of the base side is 9,131 pyramid inches, measured at the mean socket level, or 365.24 pyramid cubits. So what happens is when you actually measure the base of the pyramid, you actually come up with the 365 days in a year. You know how many days are actually in the year, okay? That's pretty crazy. The perimeter of the base divided by 100 equals 365 as well. You can calculate the tropical year. The length of the antechamber used as the diameter of the circle produces a circumference of 365, accurate to within 6 digits. The tropical year, the ratio of the length of the grand gallery to the solid diagonal of the king's chamber times 100 equals the number of days in a tropical year. They're trying to let us know this pyramid is also a calendar. And the sidereal year is the length of the antechamber of the king's chamber times pi. You get the length of a sidereal year, which is 116.26471 pyramid inches. All this is encoded into the construction and much, much more. I'm going to go over a few more real quick. Now, what this means is you need to have a sophisticated, for us, it would be a sophisticated computer. And then you would type into it, I want to put all these calculations into my construction. Boom, 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 boom. And then if you think everything you want, your whole wish list is in this computer. And then you say, now spit out my blueprint so I can have my construction workers build it. That's what had to happen. We're talking about pre-thinking, advanced and foreknowledge before building, not just throwing blocks together. There wasn't a bunch of slaves building the pyramids, okay? Did human beings build the pyramids? Yes. Under the blueprint from these advanced Atlantean people. I mean, these people aren't going to go out there and get their hands dirty. They're going to teach, and there's many records of them teaching construction techniques to humans and us doing the work. And in Egypt, we even have the records of people getting broken bones and broken arms and broken legs, and payroll records have been discovered on Giza in these ancient type temples and sites. We know that people actually got paid to work on the pyramids. So the pyramids were not, I repeat, were not built by slaves. The mean distance to the sun can be calculated. Half the length of the diagonal of the base times 10 to the 6th power is the average distance to the sun. Think about that for a minute. The mean distance to the sun, the height of the pyramid times 10 to the 9th power, represents the mean radius of the Earth's orbit around the sun. So we can calculate the Earth's orbit around the sun and the distance of the Earth from that. This is crazy stuff. The sun's radius, twice the perimeter of the bottom of the granite coffer times 10 to the 8th is the sun's mean radius. And the Earth's polar radius, that means the radius from pole to pole, we can calculate that. The sacred cubit times 10 to the 7th power is the polar radius of the Earth. And Earth's polar radius, the pyramid embodies a scale ratio of 1 by 43,200. So that means if I took the Great Pyramid and I scaled it up 43,200 times, it will fit directly inside of the planet Earth, and each point will touch one part of the inside of the Earth. So the pyramid itself is a representation of the planet that we live on. It represents a sphere, not flat. So I want to get into some of these images real quick because we're running a little bit late. But one thing I want to talk about before I do that, anybody here familiar with Avebury? Okay, that's out here in the UK, right? This is an astonishing discovery. This is actually just a map, a geological survey map of Avebury.
So, family, I'm going to stop it right there because it's getting a little long, but considering everything that Billy said, it really makes you question religion. And the more and more you think about it, and the more and more you think outside the box, you start to say, man, it looks like what I was taught, did it really come from a divine deity? Or was it just manipulative men just trying to control the masses? We all know that religion is a sensitive topic in this country, and around the world, as for that matter. But just as it is a sensitive topic, is it really based on facts? So, like Billy Carson said, it's one of those things where it's kind of hard to hang your hat on any of it, because when you take in the effect of just the Council of Nicaea, when you take that in, it's just the whole thing was meant to manipulate and control human beings. And it has worked for many, many years, and it continues to work. And it's a shame when people, spend half their lives believing in something that really and truly, is it real? Did a man make it? Did a man have any type of input? So all I'm saying is this: yes, is there a creator? Absolutely, but does the creator move like religious people say that the creator moved? Their version, depending on what religion they are, that factual, or is that just something that they were taught, that their parents was taught, their parents were taught, and so on and so forth? So it's really something to think about, family. It's something to think about and quantify, especially in today's time. Family, it is getting harder and harder and harder. And it seems as every day that goes by, I don't see any relief in sight. I really don't. It's to the point now that they even start going after the veterans benefits. So, the way the politicians will put it, you get out the military, you just go fill out the paperwork and you guarantee benefits. Well, unfortunately, it don't work like that. And it's easy to say what somebody don't deserve to have when you didn't have to pay the price to get it, or your children didn't have to pay the price to get it. And sadly enough, with the whole government shutdown, I would be very, very curious to know the politicians that's supposed to be for us people. Are y'all continuing to get paid while you have people that's serving in the military? They on SNAP. How in the world, as a country, we are falling so far behind that our men and women who have signed the dotted line to pretty much be property, somebody else's property, and to go where this entity sends them. So, and then on top of that, now they're so underpaid that the soldiers gotta go for SNAP. They gotta go get benefits. That's a damn shame. But only in this country. Only in this country. Then when the soldiers suffer through their service, and I guarantee you anybody that go through basic training and serve any length of time in the military, jumped out of an airplane or not, went to combat or not, I guarantee you between all the anxiety BS they put you to, the reprogramming they put you through basic training, the, I guess to to break you down, to build you up. And then, which I understand the programmer because you got to make civilians into killers. So I get it because basic training is just that. So I get it. Somebody got to do it. Somebody got to pay the price. But the people that chose to pay the price, man, don't F them on the bike end when they get out. And now they got aches and pains and mental handicaps that prevent them from having a normal life. So family, we don't fell to an all-time low in this country. Still got the government shutdown. Nobody, the Republicans and whatnot, the Democrats, they can't get along. And like Billy Carson said in another video that he dropped, and I might comment on that, and bring it so y'all can check it out with me and whatnot. We can go over it. But one thing he said is that, man, they'll have y'all believing that black folks are the ones who really benefiting from this snap. They'll have you believe that, but when you look at the real numbers, that just ain't the case. Well, family, always remember, be more tomorrow than you were yesterday.